Hello and welcome to another episode of A Wicked Parley. I'm your host, Justin, and I have my fellow co-host, Rose.
Welcome back, everybody! Holy.
Yeah, exactly. I hope that you guys all enjoyed the pre-recorded episode. It was fun. And as mentioned in the previous episode, there'll probably be a few more like that in the near future. However, today I kind of wanted to talk about something that is interesting, at least to me, and that is some of the stuff that's going on in the news. And I kind of wanted to start off with some interesting information. But before we get into that, Rose, do you have any particularly interesting, news of your own, or any comments or anything crazy going on in your world?
I've got a new research partner for my research.
Hey, look at that. Research partner.
Yeah, so new research partner, and hopefully we'll be publishing something over the summer, so that's gonna be exciting and probably take a lot of work, but worth it. I hope. I pray.
It'll be good, I'm sure. And I get to read it, right?
I'm pretty sure once it gets published, yeah.
Heck yeah, alright. If you guys are interested in hearing what this actually is, we could totally do a Patreon episode of reading the paper.
The Patreon.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Hey, it can be interesting. It's like anyone has any idea. Hello, host. I see you in the chat already. Were you there lurking in the shadows? I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this.
But yes, this week we are taking a look at what is happening in the news, mostly because I need to figure out what the heck's going on, but too much stuff going on.
Indeed.
All right. So, shall we take a look?
Yeah, let's go on the first story. So, the first story is we're going to be talking about Super Mario Brothers, the movie. Hello. Yeah, watching the Philippines. Cool. Hello. Yeah. So the first story is basically discussing Super Mario Brothers, the movie. And if you guys have not had an opportunity to go check it out, I very much encourage you to do so because it's awesome. And also because, I'm a huge video game fan. I love all sorts of video game stuff. Oh my god. The way the characters are portrayed are very awesome in a way that I didn't expect, and it was in a way that honored the characters themselves, so it was very cool.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing that I want to kind of go through is I'm going to kind of read through this, and I kind of want to talk about some of the implications of this because it's actually got kind of a little bit more to do with things than you might imagine. So let's just go ahead and go through it. All right. So.
Mm-hmm. What was the title of this thing?
The title is Super Mario Brothers, the movie, passes 500 million globally and becomes the biggest video game adaptation ever. Which is actually kind of crazy if you think about it.
Just a wee bit.
Just a little bit. Considering that the first Mario Brothers movie was just god-awful, alright?
We don't mention it.
Do not speak of the evil. Do not speak of the evil.
I don't know which must not be named. Alright.
Okay, so the video game adaptation has crossed the $500 million mark at the global box office, shattering records with the gusto that its title character usually amasses via power-ups, mushrooms. Also, I will say this, hilarious in the movie. Not a big spoiler, but apparently he hates mushrooms. I didn't know that until watching the movie, and I'm not sure if that's a retcon, but if it's not, someone let me know. But yeah, kind of hilarious. Anywho, to date, the animated adventure has earned $260.3 million domestically and $248.4 million internationally. That's a big deal. think about this. This film probably costed around like $100 million to make, roughly speaking.
Uh-huh.
And so, it's already making 5 times what it took to make.
Yeah.
So clearly,
Quite the big profit margin.
yeah. I mean, clearly these are indications that there's likely going to be another, major film in the works. Anyways, okay, so back to where I was at before. That lifts its worldwide haul to $508.7 million. It's now the highest grossing film of 2023 at both the global and domestic box offices, surpassing Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. To be fair though, not a high bar.
I like the parentheses that's about to come up.
Oh, I know.
It's fun.
Unlike that movie, people seem to have enjoyed this one. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When it comes to this, like I've watched a fair amount of the Marvel products that have come out since the end of Endgame, and I'm gonna be honest. I've only really liked Loki. I hated the Doctor Strange, and the Thor movie was okay. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was a Thor movie. And I love Thor. Okay, he's so cool. But god damn it, like they did him dirty, like terrible. And so yeah, I mean, like when it comes to films and like when it comes to that, not a big surprise. And honestly, Ant-Man's like a B-list hero anyway, so All right. And more importantly, it also makes the Super Mario Bros. Movie the biggest video game adaptation in history, topping the grosses of Warcraft and Pokemon Detective Pikachu. We're really going to call Pokemon Detective Pikachu a video game adaptation?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I can see where they go with that, but come on now. Pokemon is much more than just the video games. Okay. Going on. All right. The Super Mario Brothers movie was produced by Universal Illumination and
Illumination.
You gotta love Despicable Me. Oh, the Minions, they're so great, and Nintendo, and it has been in the works for decades. I want to say that if it's been in the works for decades, the story, I don't know if I buy that part. Maybe like they were just trying to get the rights for it. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know. So, host, do you think nothing can top Aunt Annie?
I don't know whether he was trying to type Anthony or not.
Oh, Anthony. Oh, yeah, Anthony, the big-ass freaking ant. Here's the thing. I know of the ant from the first two. I didn't watch Quantumania because it looked so boring. And I was so let down from everything else. So, like, who knows? Maybe it was a great movie. I've not heard anything good about it, though. So, I mean, if it is, it's a select group.
Well, damn. All right.
Yeah, but let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Oh, shit, here we go. Part of the delay was due to Nintendo's hesitancy to return to the Mushroom Kingdom on screen after the 1993 live-action adaptation flopped in spectacular fashion and was derided as one of the worst movies ever made. Alright, I don't know if I'm gonna go that far. I mean, that's pretty fun. I mean, that's like, just bam. Like, we're really like, no, this is the worst thing ever. It's like, it's not great. I'm not gonna be like, this is a good movie. I'm like, but there are some atrocious movies that were made in the 70s and 80s that I can't help but feel like, I don't know if it's the worst. I mean, it's bad. It's real bad, but I don't know.
It's one of the worst, according to this group.
Yeah. I mean, Anthony died in the first movie. Little Ant got shot by a 9mm.
Goodness.
Okay. Yeah. You know what, host? I'm actually curious. Have you ever seen the original Mario Brothers movie? If you have, type in the chat your opinion on it. And if not, then okay. Then you should go see it and be terrible for a little bit.
I'm terrified.
You've seen it, right?
I've seen parts of it, and that was enough to just go.
Oh my god! So did you get to the part with the Koopas and like the weird giant like huge shoulders thing. Yeah, all right, cool. All right, we reached to that point. All right, fantastic. But Illumination, which has produced the Despicable Me and Sing franchises, worked hand in hand with Nintendo to do justice to the mustachioed Plumber and his brother Luigi. That meant that Illumination's founder, Chris, help me out with that last name.
Meledandri?
Thank you. Co-produced the film with, help me out with that.
Shigeru Miyamoto?
Okay, thank you. A legendary Nintendo designer who created Mario along with classics like Zelda and Donkey Kong. You know, it's sad. Like, Miyamoto, like, that I understand. The other part, Shigeru. Shigeru. See, you add like an accent onto it and suddenly it makes sense.
I mean, yeah, it's a Japanese name.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm not good at this particular thing. This is why I do this. It's
I am
funny.
barely okay.
Okay, all right. It's passing, though.
It's passing.
You know,
I'm okay with accents once I understand what they are.
Yeah, to be fair, though, when I was watching the movie, it was chock filled with all sorts of little Easter eggs from all kinds of different kinds of Nintendo memorabilia in various games. And I will say this, I absolutely love the commercial at the beginning of the film. It ruins nothing. If you've watched any of the commercials for the movie, the commercial of it is in the commercial, which is also funny. Wait, Halson. Wait, I have seen its death throes. What in the heck does that mean, host? Okay, all right. Okay, so Aaron Harth. Thank you. And Michael Gillen. Seriously?
Yelenik?
English, motherfucker!
No.
Directed the Super Mario Brothers movie, which features a voice cast of Chris Pratt, Charlie Day, Anna Taylor-Joy, and Jack Black, who fucking is awesome, and I love Jack Black as Bowser. I want to see more. It carries a production budget of $100 million. Okay, so I was remembering this correctly, which is, you know, economical for the animated films, Pixar and Disney animated movies. For instance, often costs twice that figure. Among other notable milestones, the film is now the second biggest animated film since 2019 in the worldwide box office terms, coming in ahead of Demon Slayer Mugen Train for $494 million, and behind Minions: The Rise of Gru. Dang. That's almost $1 billion.
That is a hefty amount.
You can do it, Mario. I believe in you. But honestly, though, the Minions movie is freaking amazing. It's super funny. Yeah, so stay tuned for notable announcements of the Super Mario Brothers sequel and spinoff. Totally 100%, I think so. Yeah. Okay, so mild spoiler warning, because there's a few things I do want to mention about this particular movie before we go to the next thing. So, in like the in the normal like way of doing things, the Super Mario movie has a bunch of hidden shit. Okay, which I freaking love. You may notice Donkey Kong is right there. There is something so amazing in there that I'm not going to ruin everything, but I'm just going to say there is an extremely entertaining moment that has to do with karts. And if anyone's ever played Mario Kart, you are going to love this section of the movie. It is hilarious, it is unexpected, and I just look for all the Easter eggs. I lost count. Okay, like I was literally in the movie going, okay, keeping a tally, and I got to like 90-ish. It was like 91, 92, and I just lost count. Like it was, and there was things like I was able to ask people like, "Did you catch that?" And like they didn't see the P-wing at all, and I'm like, okay. So okay, cool. I also want to say Blue Shell is amazing, and that I hate it in games, but in the movie it was hilarious. So, go check out the movie if you haven't yet, and let us know in the chat below what you think about it. Let's move on to the next story, which unfortunately is a less than great story. And in this particular story, I'm going to not go over all the details. It's going to be the Cliff Notes. So CNN reported something that happened between the Brazilian president and certain groups that are part of the Chinese Communist Party, as well as we'll say the world stage, as it were. Effectively, this guy. I mean, I guess I can kind of like go through a little bit of it. Yeah, because it's not too long. Okay, all right. I'll just go through it, and then I'll give my thoughts on this. So CNN says the Brazilian president. Help me out, please.
Luis Inácio Lula da Silva.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
I mean, no, because that's probably Brazilian.
Yeah, or Portuguese or something. Said on Saturday that the United States should stop encouraging the war in Ukraine. The United States needs to stop encouraging war and start talking about peace. The European Union needs to start talking about peace so that we can convince Putin and Zelensky that peace is in the interest of everyone and that war is only interesting for now to the two of them. Lula also revealed that during his talks with Chinese leader, help me out,
Xi Jinping,
they discussed forming a group of like-minded leaders on Ukraine. I have a theory that I have already defended with Macron, with Olaf, starts with an S, of Germany, and with Biden. And yesterday we discussed at length with Xi Jinping. It is necessary to constitute a group of countries willing to find a way to make peace, Lula said. And you can kind of continue. Look, here's the thing. I think the president of Brazil's sentiment is correct. I think that we probably ought to look at the situation, and if news and reporting is encouraging war, then that's probably not a good thing. And peace should be the thing that we're trying to pursue. Because if everyone is basically, on tensions and looking to create, conflict and to fight, then we're going to lose sight of what's most important here. And that is the fact that the world, more or less, hasn't had a major military incident since, the end of the Vietnam War in a major way. You can say the Middle East and the stuff that happened in Afghanistan, but that's, I think, in everyone's mind, and I think most people can agree, that's a little different. Not that those weren't, major conflicts, but I mean, we weren't worried about nukes necessarily. Biological weapons, sure. But once we got there, it was pretty clear that wasn't the case. And, I think that it was more or less fighting against terrorist factions and other sorts of leaders and things like that. So this is a different matter. And I think that, that's something to take into consideration. And I think that his viewpoint, it might be a little bit narrow-minded in some ways and not able to look at the wider implications of everything. So, yeah. I mean, what do you think, though? Do you think that that's a fair way to read into this, or do you think that there's another angle?
I do kind of agree. It's a nice sentiment. Yeah, peace would be nice because, oh boy, war is ugly.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's just it's built this machine type of scenario in the economy that a lot of people are not willing to stop, even if a lot of other people are trying to stop.
Sure.
So it's just how do you, funnel that want, that desire into something completely opposite of what it's currently feeding into? It's as much as I'd like to say, there's an easy way to do it. If there was an easy way to do it, it wouldn't have taken this long.
Certainly. Certainly. I mean, and the fact of the matter is that we know for a fact, because of all the reporting and everything else that's been going on, that a lot of nations have been stirred up. The Russian forces have started to deploy in limited capacity because they don't have a very big navy, but they've been deploying a navy into the Pacific. What are they hoping to protect? I mean, no country is navally going to threaten them in the Pacific. You know what I mean? It seems strange. It's posturing, right? We know that China has surrounded, Taiwan, and is basically about to, invade Taiwan and have a lot of other military assets all throughout the South China Sea, which could threaten the Philippines and all the other islands associated in that region of the world, and even talks of Australia may not even be safe. And so the fact the U.S. has now militarized and sent out huge portions of their navy into those waters to defend American interests and everything. It's a lot of posturing, a lot of bad signs, and I think that you keep up this kind of chess game, eventually it does lead to war. And I think that the Brazilian president's sentiment of let's talk about peace I would like it to work that way. I think that with the leaders we have in power today, I think that is a little too optimistic at this point. But I'll remain positive. I hope for the best.
I hope for the best too, because I'd rather not this continue any longer. Jeez.
Certainly.
It's just nasty business.
Indeed. And if you want to hear about the whole Russian naval situation, we will be talking about that on our Patreon at some point this month. So if you are interested in supporting the channel, it is $1 a month. You will buy the staff an extremely inexpensive cup of coffee. And you'll have access to all the fun content we have on Patreon, which, at this point is starting to build up to a nice little library. So definitely, if you can support us, that'd be great. If you can't, totally understand. And we'll continue to bring you great content. Just, there'll be a little bit more. Earlier this week, not this week, actually it was last week, I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast because I have nothing to do. No, I'm joking. No, I had some free time, and I was driving home, and I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and he had a particular person on who was just fascinating to hear about. And this guy he's kind of a world traveler. He specializes in living in jungle environments, particularly in the Amazon. And he talked about something that was going on in the Amazon, which I thought was a crazy disaster, that there were fires that were basically clearing out sections of the Amazon, destroying species that had never been cataloged, plants that could potentially be medicinal, that we have no knowledge of, that potentially could cure all sorts of ailments that we have. And it just is a reckless disregard for life and the planet. And so I wanted to discuss what's been going on in the Amazon a little bit. So that way, I know we have a very small audience, but I think that talking about this story, because it's relatively recent-ish, it's within about a year or so. This one came out, I believe, in November 2022. So not too long ago, less than half a year. Well, thereabouts. But either way, I think it's a big deal, and I think it's a story I want to talk about. So, buckle up. So this is the Amazon after a fire. I mean, it looks like a war zone. It's awful. Okay. The Amazon rainforest is now alarmingly close to reaching a critical tipping point from which there is no return, with catastrophic consequences for people and the planet. New WWF research warns, which is a great name, by the way, WWF. Come on now. Maybe consider changing that. Get confused with a different WWF, you know what I'm saying? The charity said the study released on Biodiversity Day at COP27 sounds an alarm bell for humanity, and in the worst case scenario, the so-called lungs of the world could cause to function a vital global climate regulatory within just 10 years. I actually...
That's a typo.
Yes, it's a super typo. My bad. I should have screened this a little bit better. But it was a good...
I think it's trying to say cease to function.
Cease to function, yeah. I don't think it'll cease to function, but it will be reduced in a significant way. I mean, it is the... All right, so the Amazon rainforest produces something like, I think, a little over around like a third of all of the oxygen that's produced on land. Like, for the globe. So
Yikes.
Yeah, like losing that is a pretty big deal. Now there is, I wouldn't say like it's not the end of the world if that were to go away, but I mean actually that's not true yet. It would be, No, it would be, because our climate would be radically different, and who knows what that would be like, and it would likely be the end of the world we understood. Maybe not the end of life as we as life in general, but certainly life as we understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so the worsening climate crisis, deforestation, and degradation are all pushing the Amazon towards tipping into a permanently degraded state, with the WWF saying the forest as we know it may die by 2030, risking catastrophic consequences for nature. If such a tipping point is reached, the forest would change forever. The authors of the report said, with more frequent drought and fire preventing its recovery and releasing enough carbon to put the 1.5 C global climate target out of reach. The researchers said over a third, 34% of the Amazon biome area has already experienced at least one of 3 theoretical tipping points. These thresholds relate to rainfall, length of dry season, and deforestation or conversion of natural habitats. That is actually a big deal, because what ends up happening is, for those of you guys who aren't exactly familiar with this, some parts of the jungle literally get bulldozed. All the trees get ripped out, everything's just toast, right? And then they burn it. And then they bring in like farmland, and they try to like have, vegetation and farm stuff like produce grow in these areas. And so it just it sucks all the nutrients out of the soil and destroys the original ecosystem. So all the organisms that live in the surrounding area now have less to work with. And that is a huge deal for survivability. Because imagine if you're like, okay, cool, I have 10 acres of land to live on and hunt on, and then someone comes along and goes, well, you had 10, now you have 6. What do you think it's going to do to your population? It's going to cut it by a third.
Oh yeah, I'm just imagining a really tiny example. Imagine your house and cut it in half.
Yeah, I mean that's another. It's like, you know what? You don't need a bathroom. You don't need a sink. You don't need a kitchen. You don't need those things.
Somebody just bulldozes half your house.
Yeah, you're like, no, you don't need those things.
And you don't get to choose which half of the house.
Oh man, no, not my office.
Because it's like, that's what we're kind of doing. It's like the inhabitants don't get to choose, what part the humans are colonizing or like getting rid of. So it's just like, imagine, it's just like, you have your part of the house that you want. Yeah, no one cares.
Yeah, I mean, the particular guy that was talking on that podcast, he was literally talking about how there was the fire going on, and he was literally grabbing animals that were half on fire, putting the fire out and throwing them into the jungle.
Jesus.
As he's like going through there, and he got like super pissed, and he made like a TikTok of what was going on.
Goodness gracious.
And it went viral.
I mean,
and the crazy thing is, it went viral and everyone knew about it, right? But then after a few months, nothing happened.
Oof. So it just kind of disappeared off the radar.
And then somebody really rich came in and kind of basically was like, hold my beer, I'm going to help out.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, and basically, came in and kind of saved the day a little bit. So, I mean, this isn't by no means, the end, but like, at least it's a step in the right direction from the story that I was being told. But this is not exactly it's not the whole picture, so. Okay, right. So, the charity said that the situation requires immediate global action from the UK and global governments, as well as the private sector. Mary Geigen, the lead author of the report and WWF's chief forest advisor, said, "This paper sounds an alarm bell for humanity, revealing the twin threats of climate change and forest loss are pushing the world's largest rainforest alarmingly close to a precipice. We could lose the Amazon to a state of permanent, irreversible degradation that would impact the entire planet." And that is 100% true. I did a little bit of research on the Amazon, like when it comes to just like things that I didn't understand. You know how like when you go to research something, you typically, you skim past the things you're already familiar with and you stop and you learn on certain things that you're like, oh, I did not know this at all.
It's like, wait a minute.
I stopped several times when I was going through all the information I could find on this. I was surprised at the level of filtration that happens when it comes to just like the water is so clean, you can just drink it. And it's crazy. And the fact that everything is constantly wet, I don't know, it's just bizarre. Just to like to think about. Because what other places in the world are like that?
Not many.
If there aren't many. The more the more the Amazon is destroyed, the more we limit our ability to stay within 1.5 degrees. The evidence gives a stark warning that we need to take the tipping point risk seriously and act to immediately cut emissions and address the cavalier attitude to forest loss and degradation, which are sending people and the planet down a path to disaster. I don't think these people who wrote this were very good at writing in English. She added, only by listening to the voices of the Amazonian people and by protecting and restoring nature can we bring our world back to life. The research comes weeks after Brazil elects former President Luiz, that guy, into office, marking the end of Jair Bolsonaro's presidency. And we're going to, the B guy. Under the B guy's administration, destruction of the Amazon surged, doubling CO2 emissions from wildfires between 2019 and 2020, and with deforestation reaching a 15-year high in 2021. The paper's release also coincides with the delivery of a damning human rights complaint to the UN from 5 Brazilian NGOs, including WWF. Brazil against the outgoing B-guy government. The complaint asserts that the uncontrolled increase in deforestation and violence against indigenous peoples and traditional communities seen under his regime amounted to severe human rights abuse. Jeez. Okay, so how often can we really turn a blind eye to this kind of stuff? You know what I mean? Like realistically, at what point do you think that, hey, maybe everyone else should just be like, hey, look what's going on over there. We should stop it. Let's do something about it. It kind of alarms me, the fact that we don't see that happen. It's like, why? Why? Rose, in your opinion, do you think that another government should interfere with another government when they're doing essentially human rights abuse? Where they're actually harming individuals, like in a serious way. Do you think that another country should step in?
I hate politicking.
Politicking?
I hate politicking. Because it's like, yeah, it's like you'd like to go in and help, but then you're infringing on the rights of that government, which gets into a whole other mess. So it's just like, oh yeah, it's like government A says we're doing this in order to bring up whatever economy project, whatever the chuck. Government B says we don't like that you're hurting your people, we're going to step in. Government A, oh, you're infringing on our rights. Government B, you're harming their rights. And I'm just like, holy.
To me, here's how I look at this, okay? And I'm not by any means nuanced in the realm of politics. I think that the world collectively should all agree on certain basic rights, okay? And I think you could argue that the United Nations that's the thing that they kind of have done, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that that particular power should be used to prevent these kinds of actions from happening, and that it isn't one nation stepping in and stopping another. It's the world going, hey, hold on a second, this isn't okay.
Kind of full out checks and balances type of thing.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying, like, have, like, one country be like, and we now rule you. Kind of like, that's not what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
no. That's how you get dictatorship.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is that, like, arbitrary lines on a map don't talk about survivability. They don't address who should live and who should die. They're creations of man.
Mm-hmm.
We did that. We said this line in the sand is important for our reasoning. And I don't think the planet's survivability is going to play by our rules. And we have to be able to adopt and change our needs and our desires to make that happen. So it doesn't make any sense to just let these things just kind of reach a state of irreversible damage. I mean, haven't we learned enough from the seas to understand that, hey, people need to protect these things? I don't know. Maybe I'm on a tangent here.
When are we never not on a tangent?
I'm always on a tangent. I'm always on a tangent. I'm always on a tangent. You know, if any of you guys disagree, though, feel free to, like, you know, like, let's have a discussion about it if you guys disagree. Because I'd like to hear other people's sides of it. All right. Let's see here. The rest of the thing. Brazilian indigenous lawyer Eloia Tarina, who heads the legal work at the... Oh, my God. All right. Help me out here.
Articulation?
Thank you. Articulation of indigenous people of Brazil. One of the complaints said indigenous people are environmental defenders. When we fight to defend our lands, we are fighting for life on the whole planet. If one indigenous land is invaded, deforested, if one indigenous group is threatened, harassed, the whole globe suffers the impact. The B Guy's administration violated the Brazilian Constitution and international treaties on human rights, and we cannot accept that. Analysts suggest that the end of Mr. B's presidency could see deforestation rates now plummet by almost 90%. That is a great sign.
Hey.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. Hopefully that stays true. I strongly...
Look at how pretty that is.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh my God. And just think about this. The anacondas that are in there, the crocodiles, the bizarre tropical fish, the plants that seem to cure all sorts of weird diseases, the large number of mosquitoes, which basically make, you know, like you haunt your nightmares. You know, all of those things potentially, you know, are problematic, to say the least.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. If you guys care, there's a little bit more to the story, but don't worry about it. We're going to move on to the next thing because, you know, sad and dreary just ain't my cup of tea, all right? So, this in space news. The FAA issued license for the first Starship integrated test flight. This is a big deal, folks. A big deal. It means that we are finally going to Mars, baby! Yeah! Going to Mars! No. Well, I mean, sort of yes and no. I mean, at the end of the day, right, Starship is one of those sorts of technologies that are going to see a lot of advancements over the many next several decades. And we could eventually see at least space travel in a fairly reusable and, you know, cost-effective way to the moon and to some of the nearer planets. And who knows, maybe we'll figure it out how to get to some of the more distant worlds, some of the Jovian systems, you know, so the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, for instance, and explore those worlds too. So this is a key stepping point because it means that, oh, hey, this might actually be safe to use. So let's find out what the article actually entails. Okay, so Washington, the Federal Aviation Administration has issued a launch license to SpaceX to the first integrated test flight of the company's Starship Super Heavy launch vehicle, scheduled for no earlier than April 17th. Man, we got 2 days, folks. The FAA announced that late April 14th that it issued the license for the launch for the company's Starbase test site in Boca Chica, Texas. A launch window for the flight opens at 8 a.m. Eastern, April 17th, and runs through 10:30 a.m. Eastern, with backup opportunities April 18th through 22nd. Anticipation for the license has been growing in recent days, as SpaceX said it completed all preparations for the launch. The FAA issued a temporary flight restriction early April 14th for the April 17th launch window, followed later in the day by a similar restriction on April 18th. After a comprehensive license evaluation process, the FAA determined that SpaceX met all safety, environmental policies, payload, airspace, integration, and financial responsibility requirements, which effectively means they paid a lot of people. The FAA
make
said,
it work.
Yeah, the FAA said in a brief statement announcing the license that license is valid for 5 years, although it currently only covers the upcoming launch. Wait, hold on. It's like, so the license only covers what the equivalent of a driver's license. So they got a really expensive space driver's license.
I guess, yeah.
Okay.
Hey.
On the flight, a Starship vehicle atop a Super Heavy booster will lift off from Boca Chica. The Super Heavy 33 Raptor engines will shut down 2 minutes and 49 seconds into flight, followed 3 seconds later by a stage separation. The booster will later perform boost back and landing burns for a landing on the water in the Gulf of Mexico, but will not be recovered. What the question? Huh? We're going to circle back to that. We're going to circle back to that question.
Question mark? Many a question mark.
Many question mark. The Starship upper stage will fire its engines until 9 minutes and 20 seconds after liftoff. That will place the vehicle on a nearby orbital trajectory, an FAA official said on background, reaching a peak altitude of about 235 kilometers before re-entering. It will splash down near Hawaii about 90 minutes after liftoff, and, like the Super Heavy booster, not be recovered.
Why?
Okay. That makes me sad.
What, did something break?
So let me get this straight. You're gonna just dump a large orbital stage platform near the Hawaiian Islands, one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Okay, you know what? For science.
Science.
Sea turtles will claim it now. A massive sea turtle will just float it off and just become a space sea turtle. The award of the license concludes an extended review process. The FAA official said the agent spent more than 500 days reviewing the application, which SpaceX amended several times during that process. That is the longest the agency has spent on a single launch license application. Seriously? It's probably the first. You know, I don't know. It's not the first, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's why is it so long? Reasons. We're not going to go into it. Reasons. That official noted that extended time was also due to the complexity of the application and the size of the vehicle, the largest ever to seek a commercial launch license. That created the official said, a strain on the resources available at the agency to both review that application and work on other license applications.
Goodness.
I can only imagine if someone was just going to sit down and be like, you know what, we're going to go ahead and rebuild the USS Enterprise, and then we're going to launch it, you know? Yeah, and then the person's like, there are 27 days. What, let's go. Fuck it, just do it. Just fucking do it. Just like, oh my god. That official noted that the extended time was also due to the complexity of the application, the size of the vehicle. You read that paragraph? Yeah, I know I did. I'm reiterating that because I'm trying to understand like how what the is going on. Is it like there's like 30 engines or something like that? They're like, we need to check and make sure each line of this is correct. It's like, okay, all right. The FAA concluded an environmental review of Starship's launches from Boca Chica in June 2022, allowing such launches to proceed without requiring SpaceX to carry out more than 75 mitigations to address concerns raised by the review. The FAA official said that those mitigations were a mix of things SpaceX needed to do before the first launch, as well as other ongoing activities, and those that take place after launch or in the event of a mishap. The agency hasn't disclosed how many mitigations fell into each category. You know, I can't help but feel like a large orbital piece of debris landing near Hawaii might have raised some red flags. You know, like,
and she's like, oh, what was that?
It's like, yeah, people get pissed that you throw a beer can onto on one of their beaches. Let me just drop this several ton large orbital fucking thing onto your beach. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's the
Might as well just be a tiny nut meteorite.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. It's like, it's fine. It'll burn up. It's good. Nah. All right. Let's see here. The FAA official acknowledged that this being the first flight of the combined Starship and Super Heavy, there is a higher risk of a mishap. First launches by ABL Space Systems RSI rocket in January and Relativity Space's Torino 1 in March, both licensed by the FAA, ended in failure, meaning that they spectacularly blew up on the launch pad. Boom! Or maybe more accurately, they went up and then they just decided that they were gonna land properly, right? And that part just didn't work out, and so boom, you know.
Bye.
I missed the launch pad by 5 feet. Normally, 5 feet sounds like a lot. Not with a giant, several ton freaking spaceship. 5 feet is a death sentence.
It's like, oh yeah, 5 feet. I can miss it by a little bit. Yeah, nah, with that much weight, you might as well just throw a building.
I know, right? No, it is. No, seriously, like how big the vehicle is, it's like literally sending the Empire State Building into space. Like it's not. It is.
Sorry, I'm just imagining like this oversized Hulk now just yeeting the Empire State Building.
You're like, just get up there, like a javelin or something.
Javelin.
The FAA is responsible for protecting the public during commercial space transportation launch and re-entry operations. Really? What about Hawaii? That's part of the United States. That's part of the public. The FAA stated, "We carefully analyzed the public safety risks during every stage of the mission and required SpaceX to mitigate those risks." I'm calling bullshit. Calling bullshit. Oh yeah, no, anyway, I'm not even worried about that. I mean, like, well, imagine there's like a freaking blue whale, just giant spaceship. I mean, like they're like, what the fuck is this? The FAA will also take several aerospace integration measures to keep aircraft out of restricted airspace. This includes using triggers during launch preparation, such as fueling up the rocket, to warn aircraft that the launch is approaching and to avoid the restricted airspace. That just sounds like that's gonna go like very bad. The FAA will also institute what it called time-based procedures for the launch, rerouting only those aircraft directly affected by launch activities, something the FAA does for launches from Florida. The launch will also use the FAA Space Data Integrator, which takes live telemetry from the rocket and uses that to alert controllers when airspace can be reopened. That can minimize the time that airspace needs to be closed for a launch. I.e., they don't want a commercial flight going, oh, all right, that's the place where they send the rockets. Wait, is that a rocket going up right now? Oh, this is bad timing. This is bad time. Everyone, we're about to experience some turn. We're like, oh man, terrible. Yeah, like not good. No, honestly though, like here's the good news, right? The good news is that clearly all this jargon means that by some miracle, right? Miracle, that SpaceX is finally going to have a actual major orbital delivery platform for the U.S. to be able to use to send assets into space.
When do we want
Thank
it?
God. Huh?
It's like, what do we want? Air travel. When do we want it? Meow.
Oh my God, don't. Terrible joke. My goodness. But like at the end of the day, though, like I'm trying to say though, is that like this is great because one of the biggest problems when it comes to dealing with space is really getting stuff up there. And so like if you have something that can be this large, that can send large payloads, then it's cheaper for things that go into space. The cheaper it gets to access space, the better everything is for everyone else. So that doesn't mean a whole lot now, but trust me, in like 20 years, when we have some sort of crazy new tech, and you're like, how did we get it? It was like, oh, had to do space. I mean, like, like, I don't know, Kevlar, Velcro, memory foam, microwaves, water filtration. I mean, like, there's a pretty long list of shit that, like, it was created during the space race and kind of, like, during some of our early discovery stuff based, like when it comes to the various things involving the International Space Station, certain shuttles, and various things like that, where technology was developed to accommodate the needs, and then there were applications for the general public that could use that technology later. Yeah, microwaves, I might be having it wrong. It has to do with microwaves, but it's not the same thing as your normal microwave. It's something different. But the point I'm trying to get at is that technology is going to be pushed forward, not back. And who knows? Maybe these kind of platforms are going to be the things that allow us to build ships in space, and then we can go mine asteroids and get more precious metals, so that way we can make fancier, nicer things without having to, destroy our environment to get them or enslave people. I mean, I'm pretty sure some of the mines in Africa with the people who are paid next to nothing every day and, and basically, shorten their lives by decades because they're working in mines would appreciate that particular advancement. So, I mean, if nothing else. But, I'd say, like, this is also a stepping stone to other major achievements. I genuinely believe we're looking at a vehicle that is capable of traveling to Mars within the next 10 years. Like, we are looking at that tech right now. It was on screen. So, yeah. Honestly, that's the end of the stories. I hope you liked what we shared. I hope that you thought our commentary was amusing. If you would like us to look at some other stories that you may find, you can always submit them to the show at wickedparley@gmail.com, and we will be happy to review them. And if you're interested in joining Patreon, then there's our Patreon that you can always check out. Oh my God, host. Okay, all right, host. We're going to address your one thing. Rose already was like, "What are you even talking about?" All right. Remember, we get microwaves and long-distance communication because some crazy mathematician wanted to draw loopy noodles. Okay.
What?
All right, host. You have... You get an opportunity to tell us that in the comments section below. All right, everybody. I hope you guys have a great evening. We'll catch you in the next one. Stay tuned. Stay perky. Stay wonderful. Later.